Alright folks, hope you're all doing okay, keeping safe, keeping well. Amidst these rather strange and trying times. Podcast you're about to listen to is a little bit different from ones we've put out before. I guess the inspiration, if that's the right word for it, came from me checking out quite a lot of interviews with one of my favourite artists, Elliott Smith. Interviews from the 90s which were mostly kind of audio recordings, similar to these done in the field, done beside roads and cafes and pubs, with background noise, very lo-fi, but they kind of possessed a really nice, intimate quality about them. And I remember that I had quite a few of these kind of stacked up from last year when I was doing the zine, and as much as I'm very thankful to everyone who bought the zine, there wasn't a lot of people, let's say, who got to read those conversations and read those articles. So I thought it might be nice to stick them out as a kind of podcast, completely unedited, just going from conversation to conversation. You get a lot of nice background noise, lo-fi recordings. They're intimate, but I just quite like them as interviews, quite a few of these. They're all about 15 minutes each, I think, in length. They're just short. So the conversations ahead of you are with Drenge, Charlie Cunningham, King Nunn, Larkins, Weekendette, Dancing on Tables, and Only the Poets. They're all taken from last year. And the first one's in April with Dancing on Tables, and the last one was with Weekendette just before Christmas time. They're all from that kind of around that area. Weekendette must have been end of November, around about then. It might not be for everyone, but I think there'll be a few things in there maybe people will enjoy. They're just kind of a few unheard interviews, I suppose. In terms of other podcasts that are coming up, I mentioned in the last one, we're working on this big one that's kind of speaking to people from various areas of the industry and kind of getting the lowdown on how COVID has gone on to affect them. So that should be coming soon. It's shaping up really nicely. It's a really interesting podcast. It's going to be 5 separate interviews, similar to this one actually, all going out as the one big podcast, but it'll be a couple hours long, about a half hour each interviewing. There's 5 of them, so yeah, probably pushing 3 hours with that one. And then I've got another podcast coming out after that. It's a bit different as well. I kind of said last one, I don't really want to milk the whole podcast thing too much over lockdown without not being able to do it properly, but it is fun to kind of play with the format a wee bit like I'm doing today and next week and the week after, and kind of try out a few different things. But yeah, cheers always for listening, folks, and hope you enjoy. So this is conversation number 1 with Drenge from 12th of October 2019. Yes, I did actually start off by talking about the touch show that I saw you at back in March. So you did this really cool thing with the lighting where it was like you looked like you were in black and white on the stage, as it was like a black and white film.
What? Yeah,
maybe.
No, we did. Show, we'd hired some lights in from Manchester or something that our lighting guy was like really into, and we always talked to him about like the show, but I guess because we've got loads of other things to focus on, he probably doesn't get a great answer out of us about anything. So we were like, yeah, we'll have these cool big like old school massive heavy filament bulb lamps which look amazing. They're very heavy and like very like expensive to run, and we couldn't fit them in the venue. They wouldn't go down the stairs, obviously, like you can't load them in. So Naji, our lighting guy, was like, all right, I guess I think we got a couple on actually, but we didn't have the full lot.
Stuff. But we just told him to like make it look like the person that's doing the lights doesn't know what they're doing.
Which is an easy get out for him.
He did that really, really. He's super talented. He's got different. He works in a venue in Manchester. He's got like gigs every day of the week. He's super on top of it. But like, yeah. We like. It's nice working with someone who's like creative in their field. It's not like light it like a rock show or like make us look like the Spice Girls or whatever. It's like he really thinks about it in a creative way that's going to complement the music.
And that in broader terms as well, but I guess how has the live show kind of changed over the last 9 years since the first album up to this one? How is it kind of?
It's weird how much we've kind of rallied against doing anything professional or normal, and yet how far we are down that line in terms of like on specifically like at the Touch show, we've stripped stuff back for tonight's show and for some of our more recent stuff where we just kind of rock up and play, but using like at the height of like touring this campaign, 2 synthesizers, a sampler keyboard, a sample pad, another sample system, loads of different amplifiers, like 2 sets of microphones. Just like as far as the channel list goes, like it was like really stretching the desk. Whereas like I think our sound guy said when we played Tuts last time we came here, we only used three lines on the mixing desk because that was all that there was left for us to play with. Basically, it was So it's got super professional, pretty show busy, pretty slowly.
I can't remember if you'd done them last time as well, but the philharmonic shows that you did that kind of came out around down, how did they go? What was the kind of setup for that like? Yeah.
We wanted to go and do some smaller shows in record shops because they're always fun to do, and like meeting everyone is a lot of fun. But we couldn't obviously bring the full expansive experience of the new album sound to a little record shop, and neither are we particularly good at just doing an acoustic guitar, so we spent a bit of time coming up with something in between those two things and tried to have a little bit of fun with it, and I ended up playing bass, and Owen was sort of singing along to a backing track as well. I think it went pretty well. It was a different way of working to what we'd done before, obviously, like a million miles away, but I think the songs translated nicely into these weird things. Some people weren't into it, and some people were really into it, and it did the job.
We've got quite a liberal attitude to what our band is and what it can be, but we tend to like lose grasp of the fact that like what our band is to most people is 2 records of like rock music up until Strange Creatures came out, and still that is like a rock record. It's not like anything's changed that much, but I think like we think it's more okay to take the piss than people who might just like there's like like come across people who listen to our stuff and they just like get it at face value. There's people that like want me to fight them in the street because of the violence of the lyrics on the first and second record. Like they're like so like, yeah, this is what it is to me, and this is what it means, and there's nothing wrong with that. But also, like I think at the moment that our band is a hip hop project, and I'm like completely like legitimate in thinking that that's what it is. But like if I ever released anything like that, it would upset everyone. So we just need to temper our attitudes basically, and just be a normal rock and roll band, don't we?
I don't know. Little column A, little column B.
Yeah.
And then, so in terms of the recording process for the 3 albums, you also worked with Ross Orton on each one. Has it been a similar recording process for each one, or has it differed on each album? No, so far.
First one was done over a couple of years, very like short bursts of recording. The first 4 songs on the first record are the first 4 songs that we ever recorded in a studio, like like setting up the drums and setting up the amplifiers, not just like going into a room and playing into microphones, but like first time that we'd ever recorded anything. And it's weird how that record holds together despite being recorded over 18 months. The second record was recorded in 4 months. It's like for me, I'd written bass parts to the songs that were written for like guitar and drums, and there was nothing else really added, just like maybe like secondary guitar parts and stuff. And then on Strange Creatures it was like we're gonna like have these synth sounds, we're gonna have these electronic drum sounds, we're gonna have these kit sounds, and we just like bits of piano, like different vocal harmonies, and we just like we went for something that was a bit too, like looking back on it, probably just like a bit too like a bit too like much. Like we should have just like maybe just kind of stepped it back a bit and just kind of like, no, what is it about? What are the songs about? And what's it easy to achieve with? But at the same time, if we hadn't done that, we because like the band's always been something that's based on limitation, so it's just like originally it's just like vocals, guitars, drums, like that's all that it is. And then and then it's like, oh, we're gonna like add another instrument, and then for the third record it's like we can do anything we want. There's something that was really great about that as a musician, as an artist. It was very liberating, but also in terms of like looking back on it now, it's been out for 7 months, and now I can kind of like see it in the rearview mirror, and it's like you're just trying to do too much. Like you haven't like properly sat down and gone like, you know what you want it to be from the off. Which is it's nice. It's nice to have that. It's nice to like have like closure on something and not be like, is it good? Is it good? Is it good? Like I know what it is now. It is good. It means a lot to me. But it means a lot to me in a way that it won't mean a lot to the people that like our band.
Yeah. And for this album, with the process, it was a little bit stop-start again, going into the studio.
Just more of a scheduling thing rather than if we'd had all the studio time like that we had on the last record, where we had like a block of 4 months to go and record. It would have been smoother, but with this it was like you've got like 2 weeks, and then like Ross is working with this band, and we just weren't the priority, which is fine because like Ross has got to make money, Ross has got to like record other bands, and we don't have like an unlimited recording budget to like, yeah, like we'll book you out, like, you know, like people have other jobs. We are only like our priority. So it was fine. It's just a bit. It's like you'd go in and you'd be alienated from something that you'd been working on 2 months prior, and in that way, like it's difficult to like, you weren't in the mood that you were in 2 months ago. Something's changed.
So we were going back and coming at it from a different perspective each time we go back in, which massively affected it. We probably did, I don't know, 3 or 4 different versions at least of some songs on the album. Some not so much, but yeah, it's a strange process. I don't think we'd really want to repeat.
Do you think there were any advantages came from it, like having that distance to then look at the songs, or like would you not rather do it?
Not really. You just want to like. I think like key in anything that we do like this is just like keep it simple. Don't make it too complicated for yourself, and don't overthink it. I think that, you know, like it's just a sign of a band that isn't really, you know, prepared to like go in and do a record in 2 weeks. We've just been touring kind of like continuously for 4 years and didn't really know what like being in a studio or like how to write songs anymore. Just like road tired is the word. Road worn.
And like from the get-go of this record with Bonfire, the City Boys, that's not really smacks in your face. It's galvanising. It gets you straight into it, introduces you to everything. At what point did it become the opener? Was it always the opener? Did it always sound like?
Yeah, I think so. I think. I mean, like the first line, it started with a bang. It's just like you want to like. Not that I've ever really thought about anything like this prior. And the first 2 albums aren't like this, but like I've noticed that like if you start your record with a line that insinuates something, it was interesting. We put it out there. The record starts with that tune. It starts with a bang. The lyric is it starts with a bang. There's no denying what that song is. It was kind of interesting seeing how it got picked up. Like when people reviewed it, like it starts with a bang. You know, like you can kind of like write. You can write like a record review within the record if you just like sprinkle the clues in there. We just need to finish with a bang.
It's a perfect opening line. It works.
Yeah.
And throughout the album as well, you have these almost, in some cases, whole songs, but like references scattered to like years gone by, mostly teenage years. Was that a conscious choice to have those references scattered in there, or was it something that naturally it wasn't deliberate?
Teenage years, maybe. Like Prom Night and Teenage Love and yeah, why not them too? Yeah, possibly. Not like being someone that like writes songs and just like this is the song. When it comes to lyrics, it's always like nicer to kind of just like link stuff with looser references and kind of rely on other people to make themselves think that I'm way more intelligent a songwriter than I actually am. It's like like a cryptic crossword or something. You just kind of pretend that the idea is greater than what it is. And you can both laugh at that one. That was. No. It's in terms of like genuinely not that intelligent. But if you just like sprinkle the shit in there, people will think that you're cleverer than you are. Right?
That's how we've been getting away with it for years. You've just given the secret away. So.
I've been telling people about it for years. They just haven't picked up on it.
And with Prom Night as well, like that one, that's something really fascinates me because it's like a linear story, but with the way it's told.
Yeah.
And each verse is just simple about the next chapter.
Right. Yeah.
Of it. Did that have a different writing process to the other songs in the album? If it's written in a way like that, you couldn't swap a verse around in the way, or it wouldn't work. It's so linear on its structure.
Well, no, it's just like it is genuinely the first song that I've managed to write that has a linear structure to it. Like when it comes to the lyric writing process, it's just like mad imagery. Whereas with that, it was like it had like a story, like the title. Like I want to write a song about this. This is what the title's going to be like. And then there's a straight. It's like the final scene of Carrie. It's just like write that down, but set it at Baldwin's Amiga.
It reminds me of Stephen King. That was the kind of
right, yeah,
the vibe I got from it. Yeah.
But I've never read any Stephen King, so
well done, almost. How did you do it?
I've watched Carrie. I've watched a lot of Stephen King. I haven't read any of it.
Right. Do you know what's coming out of the bubble at the end? The end of the song?
Don't know.
Yes.
The more I think about it, the less I'm kind of pleased with the song. So it's better. Like actually, what was really weird is like doing the vocals for it. It's like the vocal performance, like on its own. Like Rory afterwards was like, that was really good. Because you can't hear it, but it's like a performance thing where it's just like everything is really shit right now, but you can't hear it because there's like loads of like instruments backing it up. But on its own, it sounds like I've had the worst night of my life.
I think you probably were, dude.
Yeah, I don't know if that was after I lost my car keys.
And I mentioned like teenage years earlier on. We kind of spoke about the references scattered about to that. As you've matured and gotten older over the course of 3 albums, has the way that you write songs, and has that changed?
Yeah.
In the process?
It's not like we're just rushing to get to the chorus and make loads of noise and go crazy. Now we're all considering...
You say that. That's exactly what the first song on our new record is. It's exactly that.
There's one song that does it, whereas we did like an entire album of it.
Yeah. So.
We're all considered and trying to come up with choruses and doing funny chord changes and be clever with it all. I guess, obviously your tastes change, but Owen's gotten more into songwriting craft, and because we've added more instruments in the studio, it's not like we feel like, for me, I'm not trying to fill loads of space with the drums anymore. And I'm not, we're not being like, let's put loads of distortion on or whatever, because there's more instruments on there and they all need their own space to sit in the mix. So you can't just be playing everything at full whack. I mean, you can, but it wouldn't work for us. So I'm like sitting back and we're adding little bits and be like, why don't we chuck some organ on here? And that's how the songs evolve. It's a far more subtler and maybe more difficult and fairer process, but yeah, maybe we'll go back.
I haven't really been studying my craft though. I've just decided to write some songs to see if I could, because we haven't written any songs.
Yeah,
we've just written.
No, you've gotten into classic songwriters though, whereas before you weren't bothered about Springsteen and Dylan and all them. Now you're there.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not into them anymore. I'm into.
Well, we've moved, so we'll probably go back to. You can expect just running as, like head first into the chorus, loads of noise, for the next album.
Yeah. Spill it all, yeah.
Don't print that.
Kind of like, obviously just asking about how you've changed the songwriters over those. Is it, I mean, what was it, 6 years since the first album? Was it 2013?
Yeah.
2012 maybe?
Yeah,
6 years.
but
6
I
years.
guess some of those songs are 10 years old.
Yeah, I guess when you started gigging.
So yeah,
How has the music industry changed over that period?
music industry is incredibly weird.
In
In fact, the world is incredibly weird. I watched an episode of Top Boy recently, and Top Boy, the first series from 2011, it's only 8 years ago. It seems like a completely different planet. Like the world has just changed so much in the past decade. It's just weird, and having I guess grown up and like had like a who was that? Taylor Swift.
The world.
Yeah, no, like the world has changed. The music industry, it's all online. It's all
streaming wasn't
it's all
as much of
social
a thing
media.
when we started, and Shazam wasn't a thing, and the charts were more important than they are now, and like it's gotten more, I don't know if democratic's the right word, but people can go and find what they want, whatever, and it doesn't matter, and you can get touring bands who are huge, but you'll never hear them on the radio.
No one does, because it's all like predetermined, predecided.
Well, that's what they don't want you to think.
It's just weird. It's just, and also, like with the impending B word happening, like,
Oh God, yeah.
being in a band at the moment, it just seems like probably the stupidest decision you could ever make. It's just like
It must be work. Like I saw an article the other day speaking about the difficulties of touring Europe after / if that happened. That must be a bit worrying. Like the impact it could have upon bands. And
it would ultimately stop us ever being able to tour in Europe. And we're not a big band. We don't sell out loads of shows in Europe. We have like mild following in Western Europe. It would stop us. It would stop us playing shows over there. Full stop. We can't even afford to do it right now. If you were starting out as a band, it would be a massive ball ache. You just wouldn't do it. Labels will have to stump up so much like support fund for it.
Already our friends who are working are getting turned down in favour of people who are European to go and do big European tours instead of like being British.
Frightening. That's something that I don't even think would have come into anyone's head at the time of the vote.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Well,
that's not
it didn't
that,
even come into anyone's head
wasn't
6 months ago.
yeah.
Like it's such a
It was
short
purely
term,
emotional.
It's very, very,
Frightening.
it's very upsetting. Yeah.
Sorry, Alex. You got any more?
I've got like one more year.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah.
Change over about half an hour.
Okay. Cool.
Sound.
Yeah. It was just. Do you have ideas on what's going to happen next? Do you know where the next album's going to go?
Do you know what? We're going to talk about it on Monday.
This
is our last show in the calendar. So yeah, we're going to sit down on Monday and
figure out.
Have a tete-a-tete and try and work it out. So we'll save that argument till then. Save you the embarrassment of having it printed out online. Save us the embarrassment of having to try and work out what we're doing right now. Yeah. So yeah, it's coming. There is something of a plan. We've learned from our mistakes.
It's just whether we apply anything we've learned.
Yeah.
But yeah, we hope to get working on some new music soon, basically.
This is conversation number 2 with Charlie Cunningham from 11th of November 2019.
Hello, testing, check.
Yeah, it's coming through. Good question. Have you been doing a lot of interviews on the tour?
A few here and there, yeah. The odd one.
It's always better doing them in person instead of over the phone.
I think so, yeah. It can be, yeah. Or sometimes it's the email questions, they're the worst ones.
Yeah.
It takes me fucking ages. I ended up just not doing it because it's like I'm so dyslexic, so I just kind of fuck these things up. But anyway, yeah, face to face is best. I agree.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I wanted to start off by talking a bit about place, because you've been about a lot. You know, you lived in quite a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in Bedfordshire, were you always kind of naturally musically inclined and talented, or was it something you kind of had to work quite hard at?
I've always loved music and always been like very interested in it. And like I was always watching that MTV when I was growing up. It was only MTV and VH1, so I used to watch a lot of that. And but no, I wasn't. I used to always responded a lot to it, but I was never like musically like really gifted on. I had quite a good ear, maybe, but I wasn't like you know, really instinctively really good at it. I'd had to work at it quite a lot. But I've always had a good ear for it. I've always been very like kind of emotionally invested in it, whatever.
Yeah. Do you find it quite cathartic in that sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, always. Yeah, it's always been the thing that I've go back to. You know, it's a pretty solid, safe thing that I jump back into whenever I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then kind of going from like Bedfordshire to London and Seville and then back to London again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find each place kind of you write differently when you're in each place, and that kind of has an effect of where you are at the time?
Yeah, definitely. I think your surroundings play a big part in your productivity. Maybe like when I was living in London, it was very pretty fast paced, and inspiring. You know, for like all those, you know, but fairly unforgiving. But then you go to the countryside, which I like doing quite a lot, and yeah, so I kind of prefer writing in a quieter setting, really. Like when I was in Seville. That worked pretty well. I got into like a routine, and it was a much slower pace. But yeah, you've got to find your way. Some people write on tour, which I kind of try and do. I come up with guitar bits, but I find it hard. If I want to dig into like lyrics and stuff, I usually have to get into a bit of a routine. There's a very long answer for you for that question.
When you say that about you went to Seville, when you went there to kind of learn the flamenco and stuff, would you say that's kind of like the biggest event or kind of experience you've had that shaped you musically?
100%, I would say so. I'm not sure if it was the biggest. I suppose it was definitely the most significant move that I did. I went over there and really just kind of dug into the craft of the guitar properly, which I'd never really done to that extent before. And yeah, I would say so. It's pretty significant.
Yeah. It obviously speaking about like going over there and kind of learning the guitar back to front and really getting into that.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did the songwriting begin to evolve past just you and the guitar? Because obviously on the latest record it's quite instrumentally diverse, you know, there's a lot of other stuff on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always start like the song will always, you know, I've written a load of songs before I went to Seville, and I kind of did the structure and everything like that, worked, but then I didn't touch them for like a couple of years whilst I was away, and then I came back and applied that kind of playing to these songs. Like one of them's Lights Off, I'd written years and years and years ago, and it was not until I kind of got that way of playing where that song really came to life. But I always do start, you know, they develop at the same time. You come up with the simplest version of the thing first, and that usually I try and get the melody working with that, you know, to some degree, and then both guitar and the vocal and the melody kind of fine tune as the process goes on. You know what I mean?
And the other thing that shines through as well is how, you know, the kind of emotionally intimate quality of it and how personal the music is.
Mm-hmm.
That shines through a lot on recorded. How do you make sure that still happens live when, you know, you'll be playing in front of hundreds of people?
Yeah.
It's still an intimate experience.
Yeah, well, that's the challenge, I'd say. Buzzy noise. Yeah, that's the kind of challenge. You've got to try and create that thing, you know, and it's just as hard to do that on the record as it is live, really. But you try and build the set the right way, and you try and make sure it's a little bit of a journey and try and pull people in. And well, that's the challenge, really. But yeah. Getting there with it.
That's something else that kind of lends its quality to when you do go back to the more stripped back stuff. And there's some of that on the album as well. It's kind of just you and guitar, maybe a little bit of percussion or something.
Yeah.
What other advantages do you think come from just stripping it right back, just to
stripping it right back? Yeah. Well, I used to do it for my first album. I was like it was mainly about the guitar, like you say, guitar and the voice, and I think it just means if you have less variables, maybe you can spend more time on the detail of those. You know, if I'm just knowing it's going to be guitar, then I'll really make sure that I try and cover all of that dynamic range or harmonic kind of range or whatever in that bit. So it means you and there's the advantage of I don't know really, it's quite tricky that, but something like that, less variables, make it, you can get there, you can just fine tune what you're doing a little bit more. But then later, if you open it up musically, then you can have various instrumentation doing certain things, and you can think about things in different ways. But I think I always start the song, even on the new album, started all the songs on the guitar first, acoustic guitar, and then built it up.
How long was the writing process for the new album, like from when you first started writing?
I reckon I started doing, some of them were, there's definitely some stuff on there that I'd had even around the same time as doing Lines, but I think this took a little bit longer than Lines to actually make it, because it was touring a lot as well, so I was kind of doing writing and then touring and playing, so it was probably a good year and a half, I'd say, maybe.
And again, with the music being so personal, is it ever difficult putting that into a record, because you open yourself up quite a lot, and
Yeah.
it's kind of laid bare?
Well, that's what you get. That's what took me a long time to get over, really. I mean, that's probably what took me a long time to start doing music in the first place, was how exposed kind of you end up being, like, and if you are going to sing, then they have to be kind of honest stuff, and that's quite a step. So you just you're either going to do it or you don't, really, So I just kind of went for it. But there's something, and then if it's received well, it feels like it's a pretty sublime feeling, if it can be personal to someone else as well, that's pretty special.
Yeah, when it resonates with you can see people resonate.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I don't take that lightly by any means, no. Yeah.
And when you mentioned earlier how you start from the guitar with a song, do you have like a home demoing process that you do, or
kind of, like I had an 8 track for a while, that I just plug on my kit and just get there. But what I usually do is I'll take the tunes, I'll get things to like 80% there or something like that, and then I'll go and demo them and record them like loosely. I'll just go around to Sam's, who plays with me and who's also I made the last record with. I'll go around and we'll just put down where I'm at, and then I'll take it away and sit with it for a bit. And sometimes it does help things just to hear it recorded and to know straight away what you like and what you don't like. Whereas if it's just coming out, you're not really having that kind of chance to think about it as much, subjectively or objectively, whichever word it is. Subjective. Let's go with subjective.
What's the kind of ratio like between tracks that make it and tracks that don't? Do you write quite a lot, or?
I don't do loads and loads. I hear lots of people, they write loads and loads of tracks and then they choose the best 10 or whatever, but I tend to I usually only probably maybe 1 or 2 that I might abandon, like 2-3. If stuff just isn't feeling quite right, or it's not necessary on the record, I'll probably abandon it and maybe come back later. But I usually kind of all happens at the same kind of time, and I make sure the songs kind of work by the time I'm finished with them, if you know what I mean. So I'm not very good at chucking loads and loads and loads of stuff down. No, go on.
So do the songs change quite a lot over the
time
period?
They can change quite a bit. Often they do, yeah, completely. Or they'll change, and then I realise that the change was wrong, and then I go back to the beginning. But I think it's being open, letting stuff evolve, trying stuff out, but also being fairly ruthless if you feel like it's not working. Don't labour over it too much if it's not doing the thing.
Are those things that you've learned over time with the songwriting process?
Yeah. Definitely, yeah, for sure. Sometimes you start off thinking first thought is best thought and all that stuff, which is often the case. But no, you've got to know yourself, really, know what you're trying to do, know what resonates with you. If you believe it and you feel like it's working, probably trust your instincts. And if it's the same way, it feels like it just really isn't, then trust your instincts there. Don't labour over it. Yeah.
At what point did you kind of find your voice and realise what you were wanting to do in music?
I think by the time I'd done my first 3 EPs, I think I was trying to work out exactly what it was that I was doing, and over that process, and by the time I got into doing Lines, I felt pretty sure about what it was that I was trying to do, and yeah. And obviously with the first record you got quite a positive reception. Did that impact the way you thought about the second record and the way you approached that at all? It took a load off. Like, I think people talk about the second album being the big pressure album, but I was like, debut album surely is the one that, for me meant a lot, and that being received really, really well was kind of made me took the pressure off myself a little bit, and meant I could just yeah, it was nice. It was a nice situation to be in, I must say. Yeah.
And the second one as well, it's tonally kind of a little bit darker in some places. Was that quite a conscious decision, or
Yeah, to try and I like a lot of darker kind of music and all sorts of stuff, and I think you've got to have all the cliches like light and shade and stuff like that. And then I think the first album was very much a kind of aesthetic kind of thought that kind of carried across most of the record, whereas this one I wanted to, if you're going to use different instrumentation, you have lots more options as far as atmospherics and stuff like that. And yeah, I wanted to go to some darker places for sure on this one. Yeah, I'm interested in that stuff.
And with part of it being, or most of it rather, being recorded in London, and then a bit of it you went over to LA for a bit.
Yeah.
What was kind of behind the decision there, and what effect did that have on the wider process?
The decision there was, there's basically a chap called Roddy McDonald, who's a great producer who's worked on some really interesting stuff, like King Cruel and Savages and Sampha and all these kind of really interesting kind of different artists. And he was interested in doing stuff, and he'd just moved over to LA and said, would I be up for going and working over them on a few tunes for a couple of weeks? And I was on a label who were up for me doing that, so it's important to try these things. And yeah, we had a cool couple of weeks over there, but then I got back to London and working in an environment I'm a bit more familiar with and had more time on my side. But it was nice getting the contrast, you know. I think it was beneficial. It's good to mix things up a little bit, try stuff out.
Was the contrast, where I was actually speaking to someone the other day about the album and saying it kind of sounds like a winter album? It's kind of got that quality.
I love it when people say that. Yeah.
Was it weird then going over to LA into the beautiful sunshine?
It was a bit, I must say, it was a bit like that, but to be honest, we spent so much time in the studio that I wasn't actually outside too much. But yeah, it does feel like a winter album. I'm glad whoever it was said that. Yeah, I feel like that as well. Yeah, cosy. Well, yeah, and London's gloomy, and like it is up here, it's a bit darker, and it just, you're a bit more, you batten down the hatches a bit and get stuck into it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
In that sense, what kind of feeling did you want the album to most strongly evoke from a listener?
I don't know what feeling specifically. I think just a feeling, trying to make sure every single song does evoke something, but I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what, but as long as it's something.
Do you have like a testing process at all to see if it is like evoking feelings in people, or how do you?
No, I think if it's doing it for me, I just have to trust that, I kind of know when it's feeling like it's doing that. Yeah, and you just have to hope you can't really do it for other people too much. You just have to hope if you're honest with yourself and you're putting truthful, honest emotion into it, then it's going to translate. Oh, hey buddy, I'll be there in 2 seconds. Are you doing that?
Nearly there.
You doing that? Oh yeah.
Ready, yeah.
Go on then, grab us one for you.
Herb Lager.
Yeah. I made the record with Sam, by the way.
Oh, right. Alex,
Hey, nice to meet you, mate.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Australian Ale.
I've just got one left actually.
Go on then.
What do you think is more important in the music you make, emotion or meaning?
Emotion or meaning?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Emotion or meaning? Well, if it's got emotion, then it's got meaning, hasn't it? I suppose you could say that. And if a song might have a meaning, but might have, I'd say emotion, because that in itself has meaning, doesn't it? That vague answer, but I think that's. Yeah, I'm gonna
they're
go with
quite
that.
connected. Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Definitely.
Yeah, good questions, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers. That was cracking. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed
was
that.
that us?
Yeah.
That was top notch, man.
This is conversation number 3 with King Nunn, also from 12th of October 2019. Woo. We're getting levels on here. Yeah, looks good.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I'll probably just start off then.
Yeah.
So I did want to start off by talking about emotions, because that's something that your music has always kind of exuded greatly.
Hey, thanks. Yeah.
So I wondered, how did your emotions contrast at the start and at the end of the process of making the album? Was there quite a big difference?
My god. Yeah, well, I guess at the beginning of any project you're just trying to work things out, And it's sort of like, the thing is with this is just like the opportunity to make an album came up, and we were just like, and we didn't really have any idea of what we were going to make, which is quite rare for us. So it's like, so there was like a learning process with what we were actually making, and it only really sort of came together, sort of what we actually meant by everything in sort of the very end. So sort of like we knew that we could feel kind of what was going on, but we didn't know how to describe it until right at the end. So I suppose it was just like the process. Our progress throughout was just learning how to put it in words, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading some obviously interviews and stuff kind of surrounding it. When you were working on the album at that point, did that kind of help you to escape from what else was kind of going on at the time?
You mean from our personal lives?
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose so. I mean, unfortunately, we were all going through really hard times. Like when we were making the album, it was just lots of troubles with like our family and friends and all this. So I think the album's had a darker tone because of that. So I think well, music's an escape, an escape anyway. But I mean, your real life bleeds into it a lot, and especially because this album, I think, at the end we realised the point of it is that it's sort of like a coming of age autobiography kind of thing. So our personal lives had to weigh into it a little bit. So it wasn't fully we fucked off for a couple months and then came back afterwards. It was kind of balancing the two, I suppose. Yeah.
What you're saying there about how your personal lives kind of bleed into it, do you notice that at the time, or is that only afterwards when you look back you can pick out the meaning from what you've written?
I love lyrics. I'm well into that shit. So it's I think so. I try my best to have a meaning, and then sort of as time goes on, you end up really living what you make. So it's sort of like when we finished this EP we made, we had to go and sort of live through that and how the songs were affecting us as we were performing them, and you sort of end up becoming that person really. And we're just at the start of that journey now. So sort of, I definitely think it means one thing now, but at the end of the album campaign, it might be something else. I mean, I got to live it. Yeah.
Did you set down a blueprint at all when you went into the studio? Did you have an idea of what you wanted it to be? No.
No idea. Absolutely no idea. It was seriously just a jump into nothing. It was and I had terrible writer's block as well. So it was the only thing I could have writer's block for me is just not being able to know what I've just done is good or bad. So because I didn't know if any of the lyrics I was writing were good lyrics or bad lyrics, I could only tell by sort of cringing faces and and just whether it was true or not. So sort of I was just okay, well, if I just write about stuff that I just that I really feel about at this point when I'm writing, then if it's all true, then I suppose then it's got to be good to some degree. So I think yeah. Sorry, I completely forgot the question. I went on a right tangent then.
It was what you were saying as well about how your lyricism. I do agree that that's one of the strongest points of the band.
Thanks.
And
Thanks a
that
lot.
shines through. Question. When you obviously you have all this punky kind of stuff on the album that harkens back to what you were doing before, and there's also tracks from before, but you also have this new kind of thing coming into it. What do you think the two effects have on your lyricism with those two different styles? Do you think it affects the way it shines through almost in some degree?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing with us is to just have every song have a punk intention, whether it's a punk song or not. So it's I remember speaking about this last time.
I think we did, yeah.
This is the thing.
Because that was when the EP had just come out before.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was in a similar place then than I am now, basically, with different projects. But it was I think it's just always the lyric content is. I mean, I like putting really romantic, really sentimental stuff over the heaviest stuff we have. To sort of give it that dynamic. So I think actually the lyrics are independent of what's happening sonically. It doesn't really matter if we have the distortion pedals on and off. I'm still kind of on the same track. It's just kind of performed differently, really. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing about not even just every track of the album, pretty much every track you put out, it carries this kind of urgency to it, and it has something that needs to be said. Do you think what you wanted to start off saying? What needed to be said to begin with when you first started a band is different to what you're saying now, and if so, how?
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a lot of playing into character chills, when we started, and it's sort of just because we started when we were teenagers and we were fresh off the bat of just discovering that music for this certain kind of music for the first time, which was 70s New York punk was really the thing that got us doing what we're doing now, and it's we were fresh off of the bat of that and almost pretending to be that in a way. And I think now it's sort of how we use the things that we learned then musically to sort of tell our own story. Like you can in my in our early recordings, I can hear myself putting on an American accent, and I think that says like a lot. Like I can hear myself going, "Cheer lip, whose lips? Oh, pesticides." When now it's like I'm very deliberately singing my own accent, and very deliberately about things that I've actually lived. Because and it touches on that in the album as well, which is like I've learned to be careful of who I pretend to be, because that's often the kind of person you do end up being in the end, who you pretend to be really, the kind of face that you put on. Yeah.
And I mean, can I continue on from the last question, the way that you're saying something different now?
Yeah.
Do you think punk music has a different like position in society now and a different use for it? Like, do you think people are getting something different from it than they used to?
I mean, do you know what's really strange is that we're in very similar times now that we kind of would have been in the 80s politically, I think. We've just got like mad leaders.
The impressions
So it's kind of So it's like so it's like I think the political intent is the same, but the thing that just like weirds me out is that I think a lot of pop music has punk traits. Like I think a lot of pop music is like political and like overtly sexual and really dirty. So it's like in a sonic sense and a content sense, where it's like so I don't know. I think punk more than ever is driven by community rather than it is sound. Because I mean, like pop music has learnt from punk in the past. So now if punk is working, it's got to be amongst the people, and they have to declare themselves as punk. Because at any minute, every punk fan could go like, "Idols is pop," because it's very popular. And it's like so community, I think, is the thing that defines it now more so than ever.
Was that something you found from music community when you first got into it? Was that something you were looking for in it? Did you find?
I think so. Yeah. I think when you get into music, like you're looking for a world that like you sort of want to be part of. Like when you first find it, when everything's really raw, when you're that kind of age where you discover loads of stuff. And I think it's I was such a loner though. I didn't really know what was going on with gigs. The first gigs that I went to were my own really. Like I kind of found out what the whole gig situation was by doing them. So it's like but I had mates that were sort of aware of the scene, and they were aware of current bands, and sort of so I think I wanted to be part of it, but I never really saw it. So it's nice now that sort of I see sort of kind of like cliques and things, and like, that's nice that I'm supplying music for them. I don't know, I would have liked to be part of that, but it didn't happen for me,
One of the songs that maybe ties into that a little bit, what it's in there, is A Head With Seth.
Yeah.
Where you take almost a character to an extent, and you use that to say what you're wanting to say about anxiety and daily anxieties. How does that change your songwriting approach if you're writing with a character in mind and it's got a character in the song?
I think it's like, I think that I reckon Seth is like our past. It's like, I was saying that be careful of the person you pretend to be. I think Seth is the person that we used to be pretending to be, I reckon. And now I've got myself having a conversation that's like, oh well, I'm stuck with you now because I've formed a career around you. But it's sort of like it's the play between that. So I think that just drove the lyrics the whole time, and that was just like that was just keeping me afloat really, that narrative. So yeah, I mean it was sort of, but like it means a lot of different things. The anxiety thing definitely that means a lot to me too. So I don't know, the narrative drove me forward, I think. Like I had this thing in mind, I was like, if I just write to this, you've got not much to worry about, if you just stick to the tracks on that particular song.
Did you update a few songs for the album as well?
Yeah.
Rework. How was that going back in and revisiting those old songs? Because that is one of the beauty of the thing, it's a melding of what you used to be and what you are now, and it works together really well.
I really love that. I really love that. I think it's very relevant now, but when I'm like so much older and I can't really see the difference between back then and now because I'll be that much older, it'll just be the story of our lives up to that point. So it's like I think, oh my god, I forgot the question. I'm really sorry. What was it?
It was how was it going back in and recording?
God, yeah.
Re-recording those old
That
tracks?
was really cool, yeah. Because I mean, like I think I think like I don't write as simply now, and I'm almost envious that sort of when I was way younger I'd write way more simply. So it's sort of like I definitely had to retain that simplicity, and also just sort of like sort of address the things that I was bringing up then, and then just sort of like it was almost like a conversation, which is why like whenever I do an interview now I keep describing the album as autobiographical, because I think I'm having a conversation with myself throughout the whole thing, like right until the very end when it turns into this big like chorus. Yeah,
I can hear that.
Thanks.
And looking outside the album, but I've got two questions left. Looking outside for the penultimate one, Foo Fighters, I do want to ask about that and supporting them, because that must have been. Did you get to meet Grohl and?
Yeah, it was really embarrassing. It was like it was amazing, man. It was fucking amazing to be there. And it was like I met Pat Smear for a bit and spoke to him, and then sort of that was like in passing, and it was like, oh my god. And then it was we were hanging out with the other bands and things, and in the backstage kind of area that was essentially it's like a field. And then sort of and then it was like and Dave Grohl just showed up like from out behind the venue, and I saw him like wrapped up in his hoodie, so like just his face is like poking out like that out of like this parka sort of thing. Like and I saw him and I was like, oh my god, it's actually Dave Grohl right now, and I didn't know what the hell to say. And I mean, it shouldn't really mean that much to you, because he's just a guy that's done this amazing work, and it's the work I'm freaking out of, not necessarily the dude, you know. So I shouldn't have been panicking like this really, but it's like I saw him and just something in my head just played it off as like a joke. So I just like I was really drunk and I had a pint. I looked at him and I went, alright, David, and I winked at him, and he just like, and he was just like, yeah, man, and then just like took off really quickly. I ruined my chances with Dave Grohl, like really quickly. So the gig was the best bit, and that was like, oh, it's a hell of a story, I suppose, but like, whoops.
Well, you've still met Dave Grohl.
Yeah, I know. I met David, yeah.
And to round off one last question.
Sure.
What's the best response you've had to the album from someone?
Just myself. The fact that I'm happy with it means a lot to me. Because I mean, usually when we finish stuff, I'll have like a 2-week freak out that I've done the wrong thing. But just like those 2 weeks came, and I was like, you know what? Sort of younger me would have been really happy with this album. I think I would have been inspired by it. And that's it for me, man. Because I know there's people out there that are like me. I mean, I can hope that's all I can hope for, really. So as long as it sits right with me, then we'll just, you know, I know there's people out there that will feel the same way, and I'm content. Very good.
And that's quite a nice note to end on.
Yeah, sure.
It was brilliant, man. Thanks.
Yeah, sometimes I'm clearly quite a bit trigger happy with pushing the stop button and they cut off quite abruptly. But next up is conversation number 4 with Larkins from the 1st of November 2019.
How much did you spend on food? 25 quid. I'll just put in a lot of
Go to a quick, I'll put it down a wee bit.
Right.
I'll put it down.
It's a nice little piece of kit, this, isn't it?
I love it. It's handy. Yeah.
What's this for, by the way? What's the?
It's got out in a zine.
Okay,
Scottish zine
Nice.
magazine type thing.
Sick.
So yeah, it's not too bad.
We love a zine.
Yeah, we love a
I
zine.
think everyone loves a good zine. Yeah.
We're big into zines. Yeah. Have you done many of these?
This is the second one. So
Wow.
I got first one September.
Yeah.
I do a lot of film interviews though for YouTube.
Cool.
And the zine's kind of a newer thing.
Mega.
It's good fun.
Nice one, man.
But yeah. So I wanted to start off with Not Enough Love, because that's something that kind of speaks about like escaping and getting out of a town.
Yeah.
Was that something you kind of felt and kind of drove you towards music, like escaping? From
Probably. We all grew up in like a little town called Glossop. Joe grew up in Wigan, but I think probably had a similar thing where it was like a bit of a bubble and we just wanted to get out of it. So yeah, that was basically where that song came from. And probably drove us to music, yeah.
And the place like Manchester as well, which obviously kind of get linked in with being part of that scene.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel a bit of pressure with the kind of heritage that comes from there?
I think it's interesting because we get asked a lot about like the Manchester scene and stuff, and I think we like to Yeah, that's it. Sorry about that. Keep that in. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Oh Jesus. Wowzers.
And there's more.
Nice
And there's
one.
more.
Thank you. There's more coming as well.
There's 3 of them.
How did you think you were going to finish this?
I only realised we made a mistake when we got up there. It's alright. Anyway, yeah.
Sorry, Alex.
Yeah. So I think obviously like Manchester's amazing, got such an amazing rich history of music, but I think we never felt like a Manchester band really, like being from Gloucester. We sort of always wanted to be more like nationwide. We wanted to be like a UK band, we wanted to be a world band, I think, and that's always been our mindset. We never really saw ourselves as a Manchester band in that sense.
So you had that kind of outsider feel when you were going out and singing?
I think so in a way, yeah.
Just
Like,
straight there. Thanks so much.
we hadn't really like grown up like on the streets of Manchester or anything, or like we were always from this background, and we were taken in by it and stuff, and we loved it. I think that helped that we were brought up in that bubble, and then we got to really suddenly be immersed onto this scene, which was a really interesting thing. I think helped a lot.
Yeah.
That was a really good answer.
Yeah, it was.
And a lot of the songs they kind of fit into this poppy kind of indie poppy category. Do you have some?
I'm joking.
Panic for a minute there. Do you have like certain parameters you set down of what you think a Larkin song is and what it should be?
We sometimes do. We did this recently where we like sat down and made like a checklist of like what every song had. And we always said like 1, it had to have enough bass, and 2, it had to have a beautiful moment. Like each song has to have like a moment where we always thought it was a bit beautiful. So that's about it.
Interesting, wasn't it? Because we got signed, and we had all these conversations sort of about what sort of avenues to go down. Because we've always had a bit of a spectrum of songs, haven't we? And we actually sort of made like, it sounds really sad, but like a graph of what Larkins is. And that was the easiest way we could do it. We got a whiteboard out in our flat, and we're like, right, what is Larkins? Come on, we can figure this out. And we didn't really get anywhere, but here we are.
Has what Larkins is changed over time?
Definitely.
Massively, yeah.
Definitely.
In what way has it kind of developed?
Well, we as people,
We used to be
like,
shit and now we're good.
You change as a person, like, and obviously inevitably that changes your creative output and like what you're putting out, how you're feeling, like all that sort of thing. It completely changes the way it's so like based on how you're feeling at the minute, whether it's down to your performance or like the sound you're making or like what you're writing, or it's just
I think as well we've got more pop, because I think when a band first starts we try to do all the crazy cool stuff, really out there things, but I think we've now, like all of us, appreciate the art of writing a good pop song over doing all the complicated things.
Yeah, it's not ashamed to be pop, like
which I think when you first start a band, a lot of, especially when you're younger, you are. It's like, oh, we don't want to be a pop band, but now that's the music we enjoy making more than anything else.
The thing is as well, we've grown up making music. Like we started when we were like, however old, 14 probably, writing songs. So like the Hit and Run was written when I was like 15, 16. So like we're now writing songs when we're 22, 23. So like they're going to have changed, and I just think we've just got a bit more mature and better really.
big time.
What you were saying there, isn't there still a stigma about pop at all today when you tell people you're a pop band?
I think we don't feel it, but I feel like especially when we were younger, we definitely did. And I think that's why a lot of bands, when they start, do that. But I think obviously now we've matured a little bit, where like Josh said, like we've matured and that's what we enjoy doing, and we're kind of not ashamed of it anymore. But I think we definitely were at one point.
It's weird because that's like one of the biggest put downs, isn't it? Like when you go to a gig, someone will go, it's a bit poppy, isn't it? Like, oh god, people are fucking like that song.
So was Prince, so was the Beatles, so was David Bowie. So. Yeah.
And one of the things you obviously do show like a lot of pop bands is fucking sick production. Is that something you've always been really passionate about, or is that something that developed over time?
I think so. I think we've got into it a lot more ourselves. Of like, we don't tend to send like acoustic demos anymore. We try and produce as much of it ourselves. So we like invested in a studio in Manchester, so that we could kind of do the kind of introductory parts. And I feel like we've now got to the stage where a song isn't written without production. We kind of write with production in mind. But yeah, we work with some really great people. Like we've worked with Chris Zane a lot. We did Friendly Fires and stuff. So like we've learned loads of him.
What do you look for in a producer when you're looking to work with them? What are you looking out for to work with them?
A lot of the time it's a vibe. Like you've got to be able to work with them well. I think modernity is usually a big one. Like they're up and coming, like they're raring to go with like new stuff they've heard, new stuff. I don't know. Willing to try new stuff. I think we've been in rooms before where it's kind of been quite oppressive, whereas with Chris it's very like passive. We can just kind of try what we want.
And if getting into music production, has that changed the way you listen to music now? Are you now listening?
Yeah,
It's ruined it.
Definitely.
ruined going to shows, listening to music.
And what are you listening out for then when you're listening
The
to
thing is, like, you've said this before, to be fair, like, got those mint headphones, and all of a sudden, you can hear every little thing, and the panning and everything, like, in complete detail, and you sort of, half of you stops listening to the song as, like, a consumer, and you start listening to it as a
Analyzer.
Yeah, as an analyzer and like a reviewer, like you're reviewing every little bit of it, which makes some parts of it like you understand it a lot better. I think you understand the process, which in some ways gives you a completely different angle on music.
The worst thing as well is as soon as you get into like guitars, pedals, plugins, everything like that, like you start to listen out for those things in tracks, so that you can just be like, oh, I know what that is. I'll use that. It's just so, yeah. It is hard to enjoy music, but also when someone gets it right, like everyone like put the new Kanye album on and like the first track hits in and everyone's like, it's really satisfying to hear like production that's one, pushing the boat out, and two, just huge. Yeah. So like, you can still really appreciate production.
Yeah. And in terms of looking at live as well, when your stuff is produced in such a high quality, does it become harder to translate live? No?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, probably. You just got to bring better people on board. Like Jake's our front of house, and like, if they're up for it and they can do it, then you're okay. We've got to have people that can do it with you, I think. But we've got to the point where we can't just do it on our own anymore.
It's really fun trying to translate it to live though, I think, as well, because I think sometimes people think you're imprisoned by how the track sounds on record. It doesn't have to be that way at all. And I think we go into it with just how we're going to make this the best live experience for someone, rather than how we're going to make it sound exactly like the track. You know what I mean? Because people, you want to come and have a different experience than just listening at home. I think we definitely try and do that with tunes.
What are these?
Cauliflower bites.
Calamari?
Oh yeah, maybe.
Is it ever tough for you guys when you play, thousands of people and they adore you, or hundreds of people, and then you come off the stage and you have to try and readapt around life? Is that ever difficult?
Yeah.
It used to be really tricky, but I think we definitely got to the point now where we split it off. It's not an alter ego, I wouldn't say, but we definitely have different characters maybe. Like you can't come off stage and be with your family and be the same person you were on stage. No way. So I think we've just learned to split it, and it makes it more manageable for us and more manageable for the people around us. Does that make any kind of sense?
No, it does make sense. It's almost like a coping mechanism in a way that you have to be someone different on stage.
I think it's kind of you, but like
I was thinking it's like an
version.
exaggerated version of yourself on stage.
That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, just so that
Sometimes we finish each other's sentences. Yeah.
So it's not like you're pretending to be someone else, but you're just aware that at the end of the day there's a room full of people looking at you, which means you've got to behave in a... And not just looking at you, but looking at you wanting to be entertained, because like you're putting on a show. So you have to obviously not play up to it, but just be aware of that and have that in your mind. And let that come across in the way you act.
I think we also wish we were more like the people we are on stage.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. It's kind of nice to like have that person where you can go, that place you can go, let loose, and then come back to reality a bit.
That is weird, but I get what you mean.
Right. Well, I wish I was more like that guy, and that's me.
I'm 10 times more confident on stage. I wish I was like that all the time.
Yeah.
And in terms of the live album you put out as well, what was kind of behind the decision for that? What benefits do you think come from a live album that we don't get from recorded music?
Ryan? Someone else can take that one.
I think there's been this big thing recently with the Enemy, haven't they, saying that live albums are dead and people don't want to hear that. And I think that's bullshit. And I'll tell you for a while.
Strap yourself in, Alex.
No, I've just, as I said before, like I think, like the show is a completely different part of it, like compared to releasing a track. And I think it's so important, especially for us, on our way sort of up, hopefully, you know, we're on an incline, to sort of freeze that moment in time at the Albert Hall, which is like a venue we wanted to play since we were like, you know, 10 years old or something. And it's such a sick venue, and it was such a special night, a special moment with everyone who's been there since the first gig we ever played. Like, to freeze that moment in time for people and for us to listen back to is incredible.
Hawaiian?
Hawaiian, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Hawaiian.
They are very different.
One's rancid, and one isn't.
Thank you.
Ryan.
Why would you ruin a pizza like that?
Would you say that was your proudest moment so far then?
No.
What,
no?
with the live album?
Or the gig itself? Or, nah?
The thing is, people keep saying this, and it's like, it was amazing, it was huge, but like, this tour especially, we've realised that every show has to be that show. We've set a bar now, and like, if we can't match that show at Sneaky Pete's tonight, then there's no point in doing it. Alright, it's not, maybe it won't be that good. Yeah. Maybe it won't be that good, but if we don't put the performance in we did then, does that make sense?
Yeah.
As from our mentality and what we do, like, you've got to make it special for the 100 cap venues and the 2,000 cap venues at the end of the day.
And we're a long fucking way from home, and like, there's still going to be 100 people, like there was however many people last night. Everywhere we've gone so far, it's crazy, like, that people are actually coming watching us. It's like, I think we've just come to terms with it. Every night has to be special.
Yeah.
Like, because we got into it like third date in, and I was like, this is the third date, hope it's better than the last one. And like Ryan said to me, like, you can't do that, you've got to be, each date has to be a standalone headline slot. Every night it's got to be like the live album, you know? So, I don't know, we've set a bar, I guess. That was what the point of the album was.
And that's quite a good way to end it.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Cheers
No
to you.
worries, man. Pleasure.
Good
Good research.
Thank you. Yeah, nice.
Next up is a conversation with Weekend Debt from approximately the end of November 2019.
Hi, so I was wondering, like, at what age did music first start to kind of attract you and pull you in, and what age did you first start to get, like, you know, properly hooked with it?
I would have been like maybe about 12, 13, and it was like my papa's played in bands for like from when he was like 18 years old, and just like being in his house, he would always have like a guitar up the stairs. We'd always sit and play guitar, and then I can't really remember like when the first time was I actually wanted to play it, but I've got a memory of like sitting in my mum's house and my papa teaching me Stand By Me on the guitar. I remember just playing that, like, no other song, but just playing that for like months. And it was like, then I started getting like bass lessons. So when I was like 12 or 13 was when I probably started getting really, really into music.
I think I was about the same age. Because it was kind of the same idea, but like my uncles were always in bands and had been for ages, and like any like family function, they're always like there, like just jamming songs all the time with all the family. And then I got an acoustic guitar for my 11th, 12th birthday, and I played it for a bit, and then I like had guitar lessons and I wasn't that into it. And then I remember I was still really into music, I just couldn't be bothered playing guitar for some reason. And I remember having like, it was like a Queen Greatest Hits album, and I like listened to that like religiously, like all the time in my bedroom. And then when I got to high school, when it was like second year or third year, I started playing bass and I started just learning it myself. And then after that, I just started teaching guitar myself as well. And then yeah, that's when I remember like actively learning guitar and instruments and about music and that, and like actually starting to focus on learning things. Because before I don't know if it was because when you're in lessons, like they're just telling you what to do and it's not what you want to do. But until I got to high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do or play. But yeah, once I taught myself, then I could do like what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? And that's probably when I first knew that I wanted to do music. Yeah.
Would you say you're obsessed with it all now, or can you kind of lead?
Nah, definitely.
I'm always thinking about either like the next thing with the band, or like a new album, or any new music I've heard, I've always got like a wee melody in my head.
Like all of our friends are all like musically inclined,
being surrounded by musicians as well.
Just like the only conversations me and Calvin have with each other is just like sending each other wee voice memos. So, like, this is pretty cool.
I have so many voice notes of just random shit. And like sometimes I'll be lying in bed and go back through my notes and I'm like, I don't remember that, I don't remember
it's
that.
Like timestamped at like 4:30 in the morning.
It's just like little riffs, it's not even like full things. But there's so many notes with like lyrics on it, and it's just like, it's a constant mindset of like thinking of the next thing, or always thinking of something new to play or do, you know? So I'd say I'm obsessed.
Are there any like gigs or performances that you went to like in your formative years that you remember having quite an effect upon you? Kind of written themselves upon your mind?
I've been to like, I can't really think of a gig that like I saw that I was like, I want to do that, because I think by the time I was going to gigs I already knew like I was really into music.
I think that's the same.
I'm trying to think what my like earliest gigs were. I'm not going to say my earliest gigs because it was like Example and like X Factor tour.
I beat you at Belliston Park. That was my first ever gig. No, I remember going to see. I went to see the 1975 at the ABC when their first album was out. But that was like that again. That was like me like getting into music, and I was like, this is what I want to do.
That must have been a good gig though.
It was great.
I think
I was like 14. Like I had like 2 bottles of beer and I was like loving life. But
I think when I started getting into like Scottish bands and like bands that I could see were like essentially like close to home, if you know what I mean. So when I first started getting into Fatherson, like they weren't huge but they had like a fan base, and then like seeing them playing kind of like smallish shows and kind of like following them around through the years and getting bigger and bigger, that's when I was like, oh, like I can do that. Like it's not as sometimes when you first get into music you see this image of like these rock stars and they're like held on like a pedestal and it's like they're these gods, which some of them are, but it's also like ordinary people. Like you have to start somewhere, you know, and build your way up usually. I think bands like Fatherson, ones that like are from here and that, seeing them do that makes you think that you can do it as well, which is good.
No, it's like it makes it seem like it's a lot more in your reach. Like
It's not as such a far-fetched idea.
You see people bands playing the high zone stuff, and it's like you think that's what you want to do, but then it's like I can go to a gig and broadcast, and there's like 60 people there, and they're just as good. And it's like the whole it inspires you that people so close to home are going out and doing it.
Yeah, now obviously now there's loads of bands in the music scene that like we're friends with and or know of that are getting really big, you know. It shows like with hard work it can be done, you know.
And when you were planning to kind of come back this year and put new music, I don't want to say you relaunched yourself, but it kind of kick-started it a bit and came back. Was it always the plan to come back with an EP? Is that how the discussions kind of started?
So we kind of thought like we were thinking about putting out singles, but I think because we spent so long with time off, we had so many new ideas and kind of changed the way that the band had sounded that we felt it was best to just put out the EP and as like instead of just one song, like this is what we are now, have a collection of songs that goes like this is what we do now rather than what we were before.
I think now we're getting more into an idea of like what our actual sound is, but when I first joined, like Grant said, like there was a lot of ideas and like I think we wanted to just put a bit of music out because there hadn't hadn't been anything in a while, and also like the EP is very like each song's a kind of different thing, you know, so it was like a collection of everything that we could do, but now I feel we're getting more into the territory of like putting out singles that are very specific to us and like kind of, you know, like finding your sound. I hate that phrase because like you can find your sound and then you'll like change it completely, you know, but I think we're getting into the mindset of writing songs with everyone with the same ideas instead of like adding in random bits just for no reason other than it's cool and different, you know. But yeah.
Did the new stuff like Shower Thoughts and Singles Away come out after it? Do you think it's already kind of different to the EP and it's already kind of moving forward?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, I would say.
And the next single we're bringing out is like it's hard to, because it is like, I see it as the same as us because it's us that's writing it, but it's not totally the same as the EP. Like it's the same idea but in a different way. It's quite like a big song. It's got like a big chorus and a big breakdown in it with like a sing-along bit. But I think it'll always be kind of the same because of like your lyrics, and it's usually Grant that first writes the songs. So it almost always starts off the same way. It's just when we build on it, it changes from like any ideas we have.
Every player in the band have all got like their own ideas and their own like style of playing, and it makes it so much easier when you're writing a song because you can. I know that I can just write the song as just kind of as like a kind of blank template. Sorry, of just this is how it sounds. This is how these bits will sound. But everyone's so unique in how they play that I know that they're going to like add more to the song.
Mm-hmm.
That's
With the EP as well, how do you think all the 4 songs are linked together? And if so, how are you
kind of, yeah. I mean, that was just like at the time of doing the EP, we were thinking a lot more of the bits in between songs, of like when you see a band live, instead of just listening to the songs, it's what they're doing in between the songs and how they're putting songs up together and blending songs.
Yeah.
So I think the way we tried to make the track list of the EP kind of flow,
running like a specific
running
way
like a set and run like
flow together very well.
Yeah. I mean that kind of comes in El Padrino as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The sample starts getting, is it Torres?
Yeah. That just honestly the sample pad has been the best thing we could have done to the band. No, honestly, because it makes it so much easier to write songs as well. Like
adding wee like little.
You just add in wee bits, and from that you can just. So like in Shower Thoughts, the kind of like drum and bass bit. That was just like because it's such a fast-paced song. It was just easy to. You know, it's like subconsciously, it was like, right, this is a fast song, it's got a fast kind of dancey bit in the middle of it. It makes it easier to write stuff because you're in that mindset of like, right, it's a fast, like upbeat song. So it's,
I think we want to add bits like that as well because it's a little bit different, you know. Because we've had like, when we've played gigs before, a lot of people have come up being like, oh, that's really cool that you use the sample pad because it's something a bit, not that like a lot of, I've seen some like rock bands do it before.
Not as many punk bands.
Not as many people like. So it's quite a cool thing to like add in, especially live as well. It's not just on the record, you know.
It's a different layer live.
Yeah,
it's
basically a different instrument, you know.
Yeah.
With El Padrino, I'll go ask about that one because that's like my favourite song on the EP. So good.
Thanks.
Where did it kind of come from? Because it's quite different to anything else. It's almost
the
heavy.
song or the sample?
The song. Like
so, we are friends with a band called Static Union.
Very good band.
Yeah, they're a very good band. And I was writing a song one day, and they've got a song called You Wish, and it's like my favourite song. They've not released it, and I tell them every time I see them, I'm like, you have to bring this song out. And so I was writing a song, and I was like, yeah, this is really good. But getting really into it, I sent it to James, and he was like, yeah, it's the exact same as our song. Like every bit was the exact same. So I was like, right, let's go balls to the wall. Let's just change it up. And then ended up we wrote the instrumental for it first, just as kind of like just as like something to do. It was never like taken seriously or that. And then one night, I think I'd been out the night before, just had this dream. I got the note on my phone. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. Just writing absolute nonsense. I had this dream, and that was where the lyrics came from. It was just, the lyrics don't mean anything. It was just, the song was just kind of more us exploring like a heavier side. And then it seems to be a lot of people's favourite song now. So it's,
is it the one that's got the best reaction?
Probably. It's the most fun to play live.
And everyone always comes up after live being like, that last song's really, really good. I think it's just because it's like a lot of. This is a bit different from all the other sort of indie stuff we do. It's got quite a big like
impact
kick to it. Yeah, good impact, and it's just loud as fuck. To be honest, that always gets people's attention.
How much noise can I make this guitar make?
Yeah, pretty much.
So like, do you think Shower Thoughts, is that kind of where it's going more now?
I think so. Yeah, like the next single's also definitely more on that kind of. It's hard to describe your own sounds. Like I always find that. But yeah, I think it is more. Again, it's also hard to tell because you don't want to say, yeah, we're going down this road, and then like one thing will change and we'll do something completely different, you know. But the next, like, Shower Thoughts and the next single are definitely in a similar like frame of mind, I think, and the way they've been written and the way they've been recorded. Obviously, we recorded them both together, so we wanted it to be like, you know, like a cohesive structure, like they're sort of the same sort of sound, the same sort of like guitar tones and that.
What you're saying there about like unexpected things can change the path of where the sound's going. Does that happen a lot?
It happens every single week.
Because every time Grant finds a new band or like artist he listens to, he'll come in with a song that almost sounds like exactly like them, and then so like he came in with like this. Me and Grant had been doing this, been doing like acoustic gigs, and we were doing like just like indie and like rock and roll covers and that. And then like the week after, Grant came in with this song, and it's so like bluesy rock and roll, and we're playing it, and we're like, this is not us. Like it's a really good song, but it, just like the chords and the way we're playing the rhythm and that, we're like, this is meant for like a blues rock band. But yeah, I think we, and like I'll come up with a riff. I'll be like, that's a really good riff, and I'll be like, like that doesn't fit Weekend Det. But then I think we'll always try to make it work. Change things about. Yeah. Just because you come up with something like it can still be good if you change it, you know, in like a different way. Because you can fit it into, you can change it into any genre if it's only like just a riff or just a song, you know. But yeah, I feel like we're still trying to find a set sound and genre that we adhere to. Yeah.
What are you saying there about you do discount some things that's not Weekend Det?
The what, sorry?
You might be sometimes discount.
Oh right,
Weekend Det. What parameters would you say define Weekend Det?
Yeah, that's.
Are they like, very much fluid though?
No, I don't know. I'll write a riff, and if I think sometimes I think it's too heavy. But like at the same time it's not, because obviously we've got El Pacino. I don't know. Sometimes I just think
sometimes it just has to click. Sometimes you just have to write something.
Sometimes I've just got to know that like Grant's melodies will go over this and the way Harvey drums, and I honestly don't really know. I don't think of it like as in detail as that. I'll just write something and be like, does that fit or not? Just like as like I don't know the word I'm looking for. No, I honestly don't know, to be honest. It just depends. Or sometimes I'll send Grant a riff and be like, what do you think of this? He'll be like, aye, that's good. Or, nah, that's too much. Or, nah, that's already a song.
And that's like the classic, it's like, nah, that sounds a lot like another song.
Yeah. That's what we sometimes get stuck in the routine of doing that as well. We'll write a song and we'll write a wee bit in it and we're like, wait, is that already a song? And then we spend ages trying to figure out what song it is, and then we're like, nah, it doesn't even matter. It's fine.
It seems that you're quite open with what Weekend Det can be.
Yeah, I think so. I think you should be at this stage as well, you know. Like, you're still always creating something new, and you always want to do like the next thing. You don't want to continue down the same road forever, you know, doing the exact same thing over and over again, because it'll just get boring and tiring, you know. You look at most big bands, like they've gone through such a change. Yeah.
For the penultimate conversation, I have a chat with Dancing on Tables from 25th of April 2019.
So like kind of the same as the last time, I just started for like one general one and then kind of get into your music and then end on a general one. But I wonder what the first album you bought was to start with.
The first album I ever bought was Hopes and Fears by Keane, which is a really weird one, but I think it's about 9 years old. I'd maybe had albums before, but it was the first one that I actually like had birthday money and went out and got. I don't know why. It is a great album, to be fair, but something about 10-year-old me just got attracted to Keane's music.
Yeah. And do you think physical music is something that's quite important, like kind of like vinyl and stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, I think especially the kind of vinyl revival that's been happening in the last decade or whatever has shown that people like value having something like tangible that they can actually own and touch rather than just listen to. You can like be proud looking at your collection of music, and some of the records have stories, or I know like from my generation anyway, like I love looking through like my dad's old vinyl collection, and he talks me through his favourite ones and stories about what happened when he put this one on or something like that. So yeah, I think there's no, I think I just think people love the kind of ability to actually see what they own and not just press a button and then it's theirs. And especially now with Spotify and everything like that, when you don't even own it anymore, you just pay for it. So that kind of novelty of actually getting something and opening it up and listening to it for the first time is, I get a buzz from it anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely like I don't know, it is kind of a completely different experience. Like
yeah.
Something on vinyl. It'll be 5 minutes, is that alright? And I wanted to kind of look at both of your releases from this year. So obviously the first one was Black. I just kind of wanted to ask about the songwriting process behind that and what it was kind of about and stuff.
So a lot of the songwriting, that one especially, Black, we obviously do a lot between ourselves, Callum and I, and there's some of the tracks when we've just one of us has done, or some of the tracks that we play live that like just one of us has done, both of us have done. But recently we like really love like working with writers, and we were fortunate to have our label out in Nashville that we use as the base out there, which is just as like the best songwriters in the world. So Black was one of the ones that we had the kind of bare bones of it, and we had it was just actually the start, it was the first verse, and we weren't sure where to go, and took it out and worked with this writer out in Nashville, and within like 45 minutes you had this song, and then that originally was meant to be a kind of slow acoustic one, and then took it back to the rest of the guys were like, this is what we've done, let's play this, and then that's when the process becomes a dancing and table song rather than just a song that we've written. So it became, we made this like huge like sing-along chorus, and so it was a cool process going from like nothing to something to then this like song that we love, that we think's huge.
Yeah.
Like, song-wise.
That is good. And then obviously coming on to, I think it was a few weeks ago, Wonderland got released.
Yeah.
Yeah, really just kind of, I wondered kind of what that song was about. And was it one you kind of had for a while before you released it? Was it further than you?
Wonderland was a weird one, because it was one that a friend of ours that we do some work with, he used to do a lot of songwriting, and he like challenged us one day. He challenged us one day to like write a song about Dunfermline, about the history of Dunfermline, and our hometown and how we felt about that. And Dunfermline's got a lot of history, and musically it's got a lot of history, and a lot of bands have come from it. So I was trying to strike that balance of kind of sentimentality, but also making it an indie pop song, which took a bit of work, but that was more a kind of almost like a kind of mind map idea of a song. It was like we just wrote a load of things down that we knew and we loved, and like for example the cobbled streets, or like the cobbled streets of Dunfermline High Street, whereas in other songs you'd be like, you'd think of a lyric because it sounds great or it works with the song. Or so this was actually more like we had a load of ideas and words, and we're like, right, we now need to make this into a song. So it was good. I think it worked really well.
Yeah.
It's an idea that we've tried a couple of times since as well.
And earlier on, you mentioned going over to America and kind of writing over there and stuff. When you first started going over there, what kind of impact did it? Did you notice a big difference in the songwriting that kind of came from before and after?
Yeah, hugely. I mean, Nashville's obviously known for its country music, but it's got a lot of even artists that will write for country stars will write for other people as well, and like when we're writing with people and we hear stories about people they know that have written songs for Avicii, and it's just mental the scope of that these people have and their influence creatively. So yeah, when we went and we worked with a few people, and just instantly you just get all those all these new ideas and styles of writing, and I think the Americans kind of songwriting style is different. I think Nashville style of songwriting is different even from that, and it just completely so we've been over I think 4 times now for different trips, I think each time we come away knowing so much more than we did before, and it will take years and years for us to be to get to the point where we wouldn't learn a huge amount from this other person who has a completely different style of writing to everyone else, which is such an exciting prospect.
Yeah. And then taking it back home, I think was it O that was using the Scottish?
Yeah.
Do you think music is kind of an effective tool to kind of tackle topics like that and kind of almost be used as I don't know how you would describe it, but to kind of reinforce a campaign or something?
Yeah. I mean, the whole all of popular culture, and especially with vloggers and Instagram and everything, and everybody does ads, and it just so happened that we got asked to do an ad that we actually really agreed with and loved the concept of it. It's completely. As a friend of ours actually said to me, was that you kind of hit the jackpot of the completely opposite of selling out. It's something that we'd be actively interested in anyway, So it was cool. It was so cool to be asked, and you always the one thing is that every time you see I
don't know what you're doing.
You see a family member or something like that, they're like, oh, I saw your advert on the telly. It's not our advert, it's Scottish Water. But no, it's cool. It was a really cool campaign to be a part of, and it's such a part of a whole wider movement that's really picking up at the moment, which is great, and it can only bring good to the planet. Yeah.
And I've just got a couple left, but so you brought out 2 singles already this year. When you look back at your Spotify now, you've got fucking tons of singles. Yeah. It's almost like people are so demanding now that they constantly need content and they're constantly doing a new single. Is that something that you ever kind of find a little bit frustrating, that you've kind of constantly got to be putting stuff out to keep people engaged? Or?
No, I think it's something that we kind of embrace. I think so when for example the singles we've been putting out just now, we'll plan it before, right, we'll do a single every 6 weeks, and before the first single's released you've got everything in place for the rest of them, and everything's recorded, and already we're thinking we're going to do one last EP, or not one last, but one more EP after this one, and we've got 12 songs already demoed that could possibly fit that for. We're constantly writing, and if anything, we'd love it if we could put, if it was a feasible thing where you could put out a song every month or something like that, which you could, technically you could do, but it's not going to have the same, the budgeting and all the technicalities that you need around releasing things, which kind of stops us. But no, we absolutely love it, and always get whenever we release a single, we first wrote that probably about a year or so before, like, minimum. You know, it just joins the back of the queue to all the other scheduled things we have coming up. So, it's really cool.
Ah, cool. What time are you on?
9.
9. Okay,
I just need
fine.
to move my keyboard down.
I've got one left. Yeah, just one. So if you could have, so we spoke at this at the first album you bought.
Yeah.
But if you only had one album that you could have to listen to for the rest of ever, it's the only album you can listen to. You can't listen to any
Forever.
other music. You've just got one album. Which album would it be?
Oh man, forever. Callum, you can join in this one. If you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It's got to be Sgt. Pepper's, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. How about that?
Yeah. A very good album.
Everyone needs to, like, as soon as go get their pack checked, so Duncan can talk to you.
I would continue from Callum's, and I'll just go for
No worries.
For the Beatles album 1, which has loads of Beatles songs on it, so you've got
Where's the
plenty of
towel?
choice.
Perfect. Right, thank you very much.
Thanks
Cheers.
so much, man.
And for the final conversation, I have a chat with Only the Poets from 24th of October 2019.
Actually, with the name like coming from the James Baldwin speech, is that someone you take inspiration from at all? Like his kind of writing, does that influence your songwriting at all?
To be honest, man, not really. It's what it basically was is I was just kind of like stumbling across stuff on the internet, like geeking out a little bit, and I've just stumbled across the artist struggle for integrity and kind of was just gripped by the speech itself. There's no real kind of, inspiration from his work, like initially, but just kind of liked when he said Only the Poet. It just stuck with me, to be honest, mate, and that's why we went for the name, and then obviously we incorporated it into the set as the intro, which I think is kind of cool. So that's why you hear it at the start of the set. Before we come on, exactly. And I think we probably won't stop doing that because it's kind of like our thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's cool because it's where the name came from. Do you know what I mean? So. Yeah.
In terms of like other writers outside of songwriting, are there any other writers I will songwrite that you take influence from, or is it all songwriters?
Like what, like bands as inspiration, or?
I mean, like writers of novels and stuff, or poetry.
Oh right, not like I mean, to be honest, man, I don't actually. I mean, coincidentally, Only the Poets, but I don't really. I can appreciate poetry, songwriting's a form of poetry, definitely, but yeah, you're going to pinpoint like things that influence our music. That kind of comes from like bands, 90s kind of, the bands that people loved. Your Blurs, your Stone Roses, The Cure, bands like that. They're our biggest influence, definitely.
And when you're writing the song, when you read the lyrics, can you hear exactly what you want the music to sound like in your head?
So we actually do it the other way around. So what we tend to do is we tend to get the kind of vibe down first, and then we basically will write lyrics. I'll then live with that, the kind of chords and stuff for a little bit, and then start to kind of write lyrics. But I always know what I want to write about, or it's always about what's like at the forefront of my mind. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of the process really, is that, yeah.
Has that process changed over the last few years? Has it developed at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say it's always that way around. Like, there'll be times when I'll just write some stuff down about how I'm kind of feeling, and then kind of turn that into a lyric, and then we go in and we come up with like kind of like a vibe to go with that can kind of match the mood of what you're writing about. But like I said, the boys are so good at coming up with fantastic parts, guitar parts and things like that, and like synths and all the kind of production value. And I think the 90s music particularly, the vibe's so important when it comes to like the actual instrumentation of the song is very important. And that vibe is kind of, this is why I loved those kind of bands, because it's all very, you can hear it's all kind of, I don't know, it's not necessarily similar, but it's definitely, songs of that era, you can definitely pinpoint that they're from like the 90s, you know what I mean? So it's all the like jangly guitars and shit like that, so yeah.
And like over the last few years, I've seen about the developing a wee bit, although you've seen it just change a wee bit, are there lessons that you've learned from your songwriting that you've kind of then taken forward?
Yes. Finish songs. Like that's what like when I first started writing music when I was 16. Like I used to just write a couple of lines and then stop and then go on to the next thing. And I think it's really important to try and finish that, because I think, I don't know, it just makes it easier going forward. Definitely, just kind of sticking it out, and because there's different parts to songs, you know. Choruses are obviously really important. Then you've got your verses and your middle eights, or your bridges, as people like to call them, you know. So I think definitely I try now to always finish an idea, unless it's shit, and then I'll leave it. Yeah.
And in terms of like sonically, although it's not always the best thing putting bands into genres, you do kind of have this indie pop, indie rock type thing going on. Was that always what you wanted to do, like be an indie rock, indie pop band, or did you have other ideas when you first started off and it's kind of changed?
Yeah. I think we all love bands. You know what I mean? We love rock music. But then we're also great lovers of pop music as well. And I think that was always the vision, was to be that kind of band. I think, particularly when you put two guitars and a bass and a drum kit in, that's kind of the sound you're destined for, really. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely think that was where we were going to land, is where we kind of are. I think that was always going to be the sound and that.
I mean, when you look at something like Ceasefire, for instance, you're going to have this mature, slightly darker topic contrasted with like the indie rock, indie pop. Is it ever difficult, like finding the balance between the two of them? So that they sit nicely?
Yeah. I mean, do you know, I didn't even think of Ceasefire. So everyone loves a ballad, for one. Like everyone likes a slow song, and everyone likes a song that they can kind of sing along to. It's a really nice moment in the set for us as well, because it gives us all a bit of a breather, for one. And also, over the last year or so, it's become, well, in fact, it's always been the most popular song, particularly online and things. So it's really one that people really sing back at you. And yeah, I don't think there's ever a danger of, you know, you can write slow ballads and still be a credible indie band. Do you know what I mean? So, and that song kind of just fell from the sky anyway. Do you know what I mean? It kind of just came from nothing. So, yeah.
One of the things that's kind of a constant throughout a lot of your tunes is the way the guitars sound and the way those parts are written. What other things do you feel are kind of constants throughout all your songs that kind of tie them together and link them?
Yeah. So the guitar sounds, particularly with the live show, it's all very driven and very crunchy, like distorted, and we just like that like really rich, heavy sound that's kind of then matched with the pop melodies, you know what I mean? The hooky, the melodies and stuff. And like, we do these things called gang vocals a lot, which is when you've got, you know, all of you sing as one. Kind of creates quite an epic kind of vibe on the song. So that's definitely something that we do. But you don't really think about it. Like when you're writing a new tune, you don't really think, I better, you know what I mean? We better stay in the lane of this. It's really nice and refreshing to sometimes do something completely different. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
So they're not too important to you that they all kind of sonically are linked? Is that something you're not too fussed about?
No, exactly. I mean, I do think some of our songs are sonically linked for sure, but like you said, things like Ceasefire kind of stand out as being different to the rest. Songs like Emotional and Dead Young are far grittier, very guitar-driven songs, and then you've got songs like Nana's House, Even Hell, Looking at You, where it's kind of, I don't know, it's just, maybe it's more about the vocal and like it's just not quite as in your face. So yeah.
And in terms of spreading your music in 2019, what have you kind of found is the most effective way to get your music out there and get it into people's hands and get people listening to it?
Sorry, what was that?
What's like the most effective way that you found of getting people to listen to your music? Like in 2019, so it's quite a changed landscape.
Oh man. Easiest way. I mean, it's so tough now. So many people nowadays are just on to the next thing so quickly. Like, there's so much music being made that, you know, it's so easy to just kind of forget about people. So you gotta like kind of keep everyone's attention. And I think for us, it's been like we've not really had any major Spotify support, and we've still, you know, managed to sell out tours. So for us, when it comes to like getting our music out to people. It's kind of from the live perspective. I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but it's worked for us, and that's definitely kind of how we've grown as a band. Is predominantly from slogging it on the road and supporting bigger artists and playing our own shows, like this evening. So yeah.
What you're saying there about how the way people are interpreting music is changing, they want the next thing sooner.
Yeah.
Does that kind of affect your mindset and the way that you write? Are you thinking about that all there?
I don't, not necessarily like exactly with the way you write, but you're definitely conscious of the fact you want to write a song that's going to be. The trouble is, right, so there's a lot of times when I write a song and you don't think it's very good, and then like, for a prime example, so we've got a brand new song that we're playing this evening that I wasn't that excited about, and I wrote the melody to it and I played it to the boys and they loved it, and I was a bit like, wasn't really feeling it that much, and then it's grown on me with them, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think you're necessarily thinking about people not liking it, but I don't know, it's just so difficult, man, because there's so many people out there doing it. You've got to try and entice people with great music, so. But it's always opinion, isn't it? It's somebody's opinion, I'm sure me and you have got songs that you love that I won't like just the way it is, man. You just got to hope that people get on board with it. Winning people over is the hardest thing, man. When you're starting out, once you've got those fans that, coming to the shows, they tend to be pretty open-minded with what you release, and they're pretty open for like a change in the sound and things, so yeah.
So it's like once you've hooked them in,
yeah,
it's easy to like introduce new stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
What would you say is your proudest moment over the last 3 years?
So we played Dingwalls in February, which was amazing, sold that out. So that was a moment for us, definitely, playing to that many people in London. And then this summer we played Truck Festival, played to like 2,000 people, our biggest ever festival slot, and it was ridiculous. Like, just makes you fall more in love with what you're doing, and you do that, and you kind of aspire to kind of do something a bit bigger the following year. So we've got our big, massive headline show at Scala in November. Sorry, I should know that. So I'm sure that will be our proudest moment. Yeah, and then you just want to hope that you continue to grow and do bigger and better shows.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Cheers for your.
No worries, mate. Cheers. Nice one, man.
Good questions.